I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Rick and Dean. They've got a great program. Of course, I've lived in Bellville for 33 years. They started this program in 2000.
Yeah.
In 2000 for the high school students. Isn't it like freshmen up?
Yes.
And they have really grown. They've done a great job, and they're here to talk to us about maybe what we could do here in Sealy. So here we go.
Well, thank y'all for letting us come out here tonight. My name is Rick Lowe. I'm the area developer in Bellville, Texas, and like I said, I've been in Bellville for the past 17 years. And my wife grew up in Bellville, and then we moved and started it 17 years ago in 2000. And we've run that ministry there since then. Recently, I've sort of been transitioning to a more regional role with the focus on other small towns, helping other small towns around we're part of the Houston region for Young Life, and we're part of trying to reach out to other small towns and help them get started. Like I said, we started 2000, we moved there, really didn't know what we were doing or anything, and we got it going, and it's been a huge blessing for us. I've been everything from area director to a leader to a fundraiser to a committee person, a dad of 2 kids who have gone through Young Life, and actually my oldest son is graduating from A&M, and he is moving to Midland, Texas to start Young Life at one of their high schools there. And so it's been an incredible journey, and it's a joy to reach out to high school kids. And in a small town, it works so well because we still have community. When in bigger areas, it can be more difficult in some ways because there are 10 high schools in KD area or whatever, or Cypress, and it gets more of a challenge for people don't have affiliations with the one school in the one area like we do in a small town. We've got a short little video that we're going to show y'all just to give you an overview, and then we'll talk about a couple things, and Dean will share a little bit about his experience as being a leader, committee person, and a dad of Young Life Kids. And so we're going to go ahead and hit that. Let's see if we can get that back up.
It doesn't matter where you live, all kids are the same.
Every kid has this desire to be loved. Every kid has this desire to figure out what the future might hold.
They're looking for meaning, they're looking for purpose.
They're looking for something of eternal significance to believe in, whether they know it or not. Young Life is concerned adults moving into the teenage culture.
We are the arm of the church to reach out to kids who would never come to church.
We do that by going where they are.
We enter into kids' worlds.
We invest hundreds and hundreds of hours developing relationships.
In the hopes of building trust, having fun.
We'll go wherever kids happen to be.
We have been going to field hockey games, we have been going to basketball games.
Just walking with them through life.
We don't criticize them, we don't judge them, we just accept them for who they are.
Going to where kids are is not something you do once a week or once a month. It's something that happens day in and day out.
And that's what I teach my leaders. And they go, well, it was bad. Well, show up again. And you keep showing up, and you're consistent.
Because consistency and faithfulness will lead to trust. And it's only when trust is built that we have gained a hearing with the kid to share with them the greatest news in the world.
Young Life Club is controlled chaos.
We have a great once a week event. We do music and skits.
It is crazy games, crazy skits, crazy characters, kids acting crazy, messy.
Club is fun. We do a lot of different stuff.
All pointing towards and building towards being able to hear the gospel in a unique, fun way. Young Life Camp is kids going full tilt, having the funnest time in their life in some of the most beautiful places in the world.
you get a chance to go somewhere for a week where you can experience things for the first time. And they'll go like, what, have you ever blob? No, what's a blob? Or have you ever been on zip line? No, it's zip line.
The beauty of Young Life Camp is it gets the kids out of crazy environments and allows them to be in a place where they can really hear from God.
Whatever camp you go to and club starts, people run in to get a front row seat. There's music and there's humor and there's a whole lot of fun and laughter, but there's also a talk at every single camp club meeting, and kids want to hear. They're captivated.
The message sometimes is very touching, sometimes it's very deep, and sometimes it's funny but straight to the point.
Every kid has the right to hear about Jesus Christ in a way that they understand.
If they respond to the gospel, that's incredible. And we want to help them grow in their faith.
And if they say no, we're still going to love them.
It's for us with a calling to go to them and go, I've got good news for you that could save your life and change what you do in the way that you go.
All that we do is about changed lives. And I know that because my life has been changed through Young Life.
Campaigners is for kids that want to take the relationship farther with the Lord.
They're trying to learn what it's like to follow Christ. They can poke around, ask questions.
You see their lives change, and you see them change directly related to their drinking in of the gospel.
So many people and organizations write off kids.
You're dealing with kids that you see so much potential in, you know, that you can see the future for them, a beautiful, bold future for them, and they can't see that themselves.
We get to know them and call them by name, just like God knows us and calls us by name. It doesn't get any sweeter than that.
For me to be part of that journey with them is a huge privilege.
We want to enter into their world and go, you know what? You are worth it. And I'm going to chase after you. And I'm going to love you. And we're going to have fun together. And my hope is that one day I'll get to tell you that the God of the universe loves you like crazy.
That sort of gives you a flavor of what Young Life is. It's all focused on Jesus Christ. We're going to share the gospel with these kids. We're going to love on them, and we're going to do it incarnationally, where we're going where the kids are at, and we're going to share our lives with them. And that's what Young Life is focused on. But it's got different aspects of it. We have committee, and our committee is a group of adults who help make this happen, who come alongside, like Dean and lots of others. I think right now I have like 12 couples on my committee. And they do the behind the scenes work, from our banquets to fundraising to just spreading the word in the community and getting people involved. We also, Young Life is really focused on ownership by the town. Young Life works when the community invites it in. From our committee to also the main people who do Young Life with the kids are volunteer leaders, like Dean, like other folks who go, I like high school kids and I want to hang out with them and become part of their life. And they come to club on Monday, which is our youth group thing. And then we have campaigners, which is our Bible study, or we go to camps. We go to weekend camps. We'll go to summer camps in Colorado in the summer. And it's all focused on volunteer leaders, people coming alongside and speaking into these kids' life. We train our committee, we train our leaders, but then the reality is I can impact so many kids. Jesus had 12 main folks that he hung out with, and then he trained them and they went out. And that's sort of what we try to do with our leaders. I've got, I think, about 7 leaders right now, and so we reach out to kids. We have our Monday club. It can range anywhere from 50 to 150 to 200 at times. In the spring, it goes up and down with all the sports events in school. In the fall, we have a couple hundred kids who will show up on a Monday. Our Bible studies, we have probably 25 to about 40 kids who come to those. Just depends on the week and things like that. And we're going to go deeper with them. We're going to share the gospel. We're going to tell them and walk through life with them. And then our summer camps are amazing. Young Life camps are incredible. And like I said, we go to Colorado and we'll take a full bus. Kids usually only go once to that camp. We also do a freshman trip onto a local one for just a shorter one on the lake. And at all these places, we're sharing the gospel with words, but we're also sharing it with our lives. Our leaders are part of it. My leaders get phone calls in the middle of the night. We all get those things. And we get to the point to where the kids feel comfortable with us, and they're going to call on us when things happen. And we're also the first ones to show up at the school. We visit the school. In Bellville, if schools allow us, we come to lunches and hang out and do things like that. But we're also usually the first people who are there when something bad happens, from students dying to parents and grandparents and things like that. We've been involved in all those sort of things, and that's because that's what we're there for. We're going to make an impact and share our lives. And so we've been doing that for 17 years in Bellville, and Young Life's been around since 1940. We're in about 4,000 high schools in the U.S. We're in 100 countries around the world. Also, we've really, in the last 25 years, it's sort of just taken off internationally. And because the method works, it's what Jesus did. We don't sit there and wait for them to come to us. We're going to go to them and befriend them. We're going to be at their games. We're going to be at the school. We're going to talk to them and become part of their lives. Dean here has been a leader, a committee member, and a dad, and probably other roles too. But he was just going to share a little bit about the perspective from that point of view.
You know, like Rick said, we were in Bellville when Young Life started, and I've been involved with kids my whole life. I mean, Little League, school board, I was always with the kids on mission trips, and God just called me to be with kids. So when I went up to the first Young Life building, the first Young Life meeting, and there were 70 kids up there doing all this fun stuff, it took me about 2 minutes to figure out that this Young Life stuff is for real. I mean, they get it. They get the kids. And then they all sat down and listened to Rick talk for 15, 20 minutes. And I don't mean just like, looking around and playing. They were listening to him. And so I went back just to watch. And it was amazing. I mean, you try to get 80 high school juniors and seniors to sit down and listen to you for 20 minutes, good luck. But they did. And so I could tell right off the bat that this Young Life is something really special. And so I want to tell you about my two kids that went through Young Life. One was Hunter. He was a junior. Halfway through when Rick started that in January, he was a junior, and then my daughter was a freshman. Well, Hunter came through. He was a knothead. He was having trouble. He's really smart, really intelligent, but bored at school, get in trouble, do the marijuana thing, go to alternative school, that kind of thing. He went to the camps, went to the clubs. We finally sent him to LSU, and he's so smart though. He made a perfect GPR his first year, 0.00. So he flunked out, got back in, finally graduated in 6 years. But now he's married, got 2 kids. They get to go to United Methodist on Memorial Drive. He's in charge of their young adult ministry as a volunteer. So he came back. But when you send him out, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's what so many of these kids, you pour all this into them, you have no idea what's going to happen. A lot of them do come back, to their faith. Emily, on the other hand, was the perfect child. She went to every camp we had. She went and worked at the Colorado camp. We took her to New York. She worked up there for a month at camp, came back, married, 4 kids. Her husband is 31. He's a deacon in the Baptist church at College Station. And it's a big church, bigger than anything in Austin County. So she went kind of that way to Jesus, but the results were the same. One took longer than the other. And we pour all this into these kids, and you just don't know what's going to happen with them. And my kids were the lucky kids. They have a stable family. Julie and I have been married 37 years, same house, active in the community, gave them all the nurturing a kid could ever want. And one still had trouble. Well, they both have troubles. All kids do. But there's so many of these kids that we work with and we love on that they go home to broken homes. Julie was at a, we have, what do you call it? After the talk, you sit down in the cabin time. We have cabin time after all these talks. And she had 15 girls up there with her one time. And they were all, you just open up. I mean, you spend so much time with these kids, they will open up to you because they trust you. And so finally she said, how many of you kids are living with your mom and your dad that both were married to each other, and that's your mom and dad? Out of 15 of them, you know how many were living like that? 0. And I'm not passing judgment on marriages. I'm just saying it is so hard for these kids to grow up like that. You know, some of their parents, they don't even know who they are or where they are, or they go home and they're the ones selling the drugs. The parents are. And Julie and I even adopted one of the kids one year. He was living in his car, and his grandfather was extremely wealthy. You would know him if I told you who he was. But his dad had been married 7 times, and he was living in his car, and we invited him into our family for a year. And after he'd been there about a month, he said, I need to go get my stuff out of my house. Okay, so I drove him over there. He came out with a paper sack. That's all he had. And there's so many kids like that. But the thing, what we do as leaders is we adopt them as our own. We love on them. We don't judge them. And we just try to minister to them. And so many of these kids come back changed. Like I've had parents, I don't know how many, after they come back from camp, the parents say, Young Life changed my whole family. That one kid can go to Young Life for a week and be changed and come back and change his whole family. And I've had and I know Rick has heard that over and over again. So it is a huge benefit for these kids. And we have lifelong friends that we've met. They're 30 years old, but they call me on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, you know? And what can that do for Sealy? That will change your community. It will. When Bellville came after about 3 years, teachers and principals would come to us from the high school and say, Young Life has changed our whole high school. They used to have so much trouble with all the different groups, the racial problems, but also you had I don't know what the groups are called, the Bubbas against the druggies or whatever. I don't know what the groups are called. They said Young Life did away with all that. It's changed the high school, and it changed our town. So that's what we want to try to get going in Sealy, and we are so passionate about this that we want to spread it. And like Rick's new job now is going to be to go to small towns in the Houston area and start Young Life up. And our committee met over a year ago, I guess, and we looked at a bunch of towns around here, and we decided we were called to help Sealy start it. But y'all have to start it. We have to find the people here that can be called to be the instigators. You know, we only need 3 couples, 5 or 6 people that say, I want to do this. And then Rick can help you get going. And I'll come over. We have leaders in Bellville that can come over and train your leaders. But the neatest thing in the world is to be a leader with these kids, because you involve yourself in their life. You don't judge them. You're there through thick and thin. You have fun with them. You know, you go to the car show, you go to the rodeo with them, you go hang out with them, bring them into your house, and just be their friend. And every kid needs to have somebody, an adult, that loves them. I'm saying somebody besides their parents. Just somebody across the street that they know they can go talk to. Every kid needs that. And if you don't get anything out of what I'm saying today, remember that. I had that when I was a kid. One of my friend's moms, I'd go over to her house and talk for hours. She'd make me big old glasses of tea. And that helped me out so much, and I realized later in life. And so we all need to have mentors like that. And that's what Young Life does. So did I cover everything?
Sure.
So, long story short, you pour everything you can into these kids, and you don't know what's going to happen. That's up to God, you know. But in the meantime, you can make their life, I'd say over half the kids that come back from camp, their lives changed, and it's better. They can go home, and yeah, they're still in the cesspool at home, but they can deal with it. And we give them hope. And they could come and talk to Rick and get counseling from the other leaders. You know, what do I do about this? How do I handle this? And it's the coolest thing ever. It's cool. Thank you.
And so that's sort of what Young Life is about. And I'd say local ownership is what makes it work. I have leaders that are old club kids who are in their 19 or 20, and I have leaders in their 50s, and I have it everywhere in between. Same with committee, and so it starts with, we create a vision, we start meeting with folks, and then we find somebody who comes alongside and goes, I want this to happen, I'm going to help make this happen. I had a handful of folks in Bellville when I got there, including Dean and a bunch of other guys who go, we want this to happen, and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to raise the money, get the leaders, and do all that type of stuff to make sure that this happens. And it's been amazing, and it's been a fun journey. And so that's what we do. I don't know if you have any questions or about how Young Life works or anything like that. We'd love to hear any.
The financial part of it, when they go to camp, how do you handle that?
If you financially, Young Life would look a lot of different. Some Young Lives are volunteer-led completely, and then there's others that have staff people like me, or sometimes you have part-time staff. You can fund it a lot of different ways, depending on the community and the community support and the finances that they have available. But as far as camp goes, we'll do some fundraisers to help raise money to go to camp. I've never had a problem raising money at camp. Sometimes it's harder to raise your budget, but if I call up, there's people I know who I call up, hey, I've got 2 kids who need help for camp. I can, that's easy money to raise, honestly. There's people who would do that. Hey, I got to pay the light bill. That could be a little, it's not as much fun to give to that, but raising money for camp has always been, and we, in the small towns, that's part of the thing is it's expensive to go to camp. Camp's not cheap. It's in Colorado, it's a bus, and it's about $700 a kid for a week. And so, but a lot of kids can pay for part. We just tell the kids, if you want to go to camp, we'll figure it out. We'll help you raise some money. They can go work for people, or we can just raise money to help do it. So we've always been able to do that, and that's just part of it in a small town. And I think a small town, that money is easier to raise because it's very tangible to see. And so we take, like I said, a busload of kids every summer, and they range, they're white, black, Hispanic, rich and poor. Because in Austin County, I think we have a lot of mixed. You have some very wealthy folks in some of these places, and then you have some very just dirt poor and the projects. I see a lot. I'm in their homes. I deal with a lot of that stuff, and but that's part of Bellville. I mean, part of Young Life in a small town is you're going to raise that money, and so. But I have committee folks who really will step out, and as I look back over the years, some of the key folks to get going, to help get it going, are sometimes people who own their own business. Because of a couple reasons. First, sometimes they have discretionary income. If you work for a big company, you're sort of fixed in. But second, it is also because they can get really involved. People who own their business work hundreds of hours a week. But the difference is they can set their own schedule a lot of times, and they can work around to be part of those kids' lives. And so those are some of the folks that really make a big difference and that we've noticed. If I look back at my 7 or 8 biggest supporters, most of them were people who owned their own businesses, from meat markets to fertilizer plant to Western International to just other different local businesses.
Is this your first venture into the Sealy community or not?
Young Life was in Sealy in around 1998 through about 2002, and it was successful. It reached the kids. The guy who started it, his wife was a teacher there, and he married her and then moved out and started it, and he was on Young Life, and it went well. Then they moved away, and so it sort of fizzled after that. It lost some of the. And part of the biggest problem with it was the first time was the guy who started it had one major donor who funded it. It was a guy named David Klingler, who had won the Heisman Trophy, he was runner-up in the Heisman Trophy at U of H, and he had signed like some $30 million contract back there, and he loved Young Life, and so but when his friend left, the money sort of dried up, and it lasted a couple other years after that, and so we haven't had it since then, and so, but it worked. I mean, we went on trips, they took kids to camp, and it made an impact, and it's just getting the community support. I think that was the mistake that he had made back then. The guy who was here, Tony, his kids went through it. His kids went to camp, and he was one of the bigger other supporters, but they just never could get it back going after that, and so it eventually faded. We do have kids who come to Bellville Young Life. Some they're welcome to. It's just, you know how Bellville and Sealy are, especially in high school. We'll get a handful. We've had up to 10 or 20 kids at different times. Sometimes it depends on who's dating who. Honestly, it's high school.
Had a fight or two.
Yeah, we had that. But other than that 1 week a year, and when we play each other in football, they all get along fairly well. They really do. I think some of the parents are worse than the kids are in some of that thing. But and that might be part of it. It could. If Young Life was to start here, it might be part of ours with some local leaders here coming to us at first and then eventually branching out. You can grow Young Life and start it a lot of different ways. We have some basic formats, some basic things that we make sure we have, but it can look a lot of different ways in different towns. And a lot of it's based on finances and different issues like that. Anything else?
So what's the first step?
First step is finding folks who would be interested. And that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for people. We've done a couple interest meetings, and it was good. People were positive, but there were no real leaders in those meetings. They were just folks that, hey, that's a good idea. We like that. Or we have some church members of a couple different churches involved they like that. But you're not going to turn this, it's not going to hinge on someone who's already got a full-time job doing ministry at a church. I have partners in our church, all my leaders are members of churches and things like that. But when the youth pastor at a church has got a full-time job right now, trying to just manage the kids that come to him. And really our target is kids who probably don't go to church very often, honestly, if at all. And I'd say Sealy's probably got about 900 kids in their high school, 800 or 900. And if 100 of those kids regularly go to a church, I'd be surprised. And I'd say those are about similar numbers in Bellville. Sometimes they might go last week at Easter, they might go at Christmas, but that may be the only time. And you guys have been around. That's how a lot of churches have become in our culture. It's just sort of a checkbox that yes, I'm a member, but I'm not really too active in it. I've got too many other things going on. So.
And the way our committee works is, I think, over the years, and it's changed, I think people see that, hey, so-and-so's on the committee, I'm going to support Young Life. We're like the marketing end of it, I guess. So, and there's about 15 people that we met that really support all this, and I think if we can find some leaders to get it going, then a lot of people will come on board, and there's even a guy at the high school wants to be a leader, and we can find some other volunteer leaders to help do this.
But it really takes that adults in the backing because if it does it, we could get something started, but it wouldn't last, and we don't want to do that. Because that just leaves a bad taste in people's mouth and for the kids' view of Christ, because we're representing Christ to them.
What about the liability aspect?
As far as, Young Life's a nonprofit corporation. We have insurance. If you go through Young Life, part of the budget is insurance and things like that. And it's not, because it's such a huge group, that part is not it's part of a service center charge that we send off as part of the money that we spend that covers those sort of things. really haven't had a major issue. I mean, sometimes stuff happens when you're dealing with kids, obviously, and our leaders are trained. We do background checks, and we do all sorts of things. If you're going to be a leader with a kid, you're going to have to go through all that things. You're going to have to go through driving things to be approved to drive kids. And so Young Life is, over the years, we've really developed all those sort of things where we have the safeguards. And like I said, there's probably 5,000 staff folks, and there's hundreds of thousands, over 100,000, I think, leaders and volunteers and stuff like that in the U.S. And so, well, we appreciate it. I've got some information over there, my card, and a couple things. And if you know of anyone who we should meet with or talk to, or you want to talk to, we'd love to help out in any way and meet with them and talk with them. And we're really looking for someone who wants to really step up and help make this happen. We'll do whatever it takes from behind the scenes and helping, but like I said, it takes a local team to make this work. But it will impact your school. It will impact your community. Our leaders, our kids come back, and the guy who's actually running Young Life in Bellville now is one of our old club kids who is there doing it, and it's been fun to go through life. I'm actually doing his wedding in 2 weeks or so. He's getting married to one of my Young Life leaders. So there we go. And so it's a big family when it comes to that kind of stuff. Well, thank y'all.
Well, Ricky,